hot tubs from 6 major brands at up to 50% off. That's this weekend at the Dulles Expo Center. Visit spaexpo.com.
Good morning, America. The new warning: mandatory evacuations ordered for thousands as a major storm slams California. Fears of mudslides that could devastate those areas already hit hard by wildfires.
Also this morning, President Trump suggests he may pardon former campaign chair Paul Manafort as he blasts the Russia investigation in a new interview, and threatens to retaliate against Democrats by releasing what he calls devastating documents.
The bombshell new report that could cost ousted CBS chief Les Moonves $120 million, claiming he tried to silence an alleged sexual assault victim, reportedly saying if she talks, I'm finished.
Out of bounds. The firestorm after the Washington Redskins claim a player just days after he was arrested on charges of domestic violence.
Dream wedding disaster. The popular destination resort now facing a $30 million lawsuit. The couple 1 day away from saying I do when the bride is assaulted in her hotel room by the butler.
And I'm dreaming of a black Christmas? The crazy new Christmas tree trend, decking the halls across America, is black, the new green.
Live in Times Square, this is GMA with Robin Roberts, George Stephanopoulos, and Michael Strahan.
But it was also the way he delivered it, too.
It was. Good morning, America. I'll admit you dumbfounded me with that question, Michael.
Is black the new green?
We shall find out. But we're going to begin with that dangerous storm hitting California right now. Mandatory evacuations have been ordered as some areas already devastated by wildfires now face torrential downpours that could lead to flash floods and mudslides. Our chief national correspondent, Matt Gutman, is in Agoura Hills, California, with the latest. Good morning, Matt.
Hey, good morning, Robin. We're in a bit of a lull of rain, which is good news right now, but this storm in general is exactly what forecasters have been warning about, this quick punch of rain in Northern California and here in Southern California across these burn-scarred areas. I want to show you something. Regular soil that has been scarred, but it basically turns to clay. Check out my shoes. That's what happens here. And what it means is that all the water that comes down isn't absorbed by the mountain, but just comes running down and forming those mudslides and flash floods. And the concern is not for homes that have already been destroyed, but homes that have not yet been destroyed. And these flash floods can happen so quickly, and they can be so fatal. Now, the sandbags have been filled across the southern part of the state. There are K-rails being set up to stop the flooding as well. Evacuations, as you mentioned, affecting 3,000 people already in areas near here, but many more people will be affected by what happens on the roads. And unfortunately, this morning, I was in a wreck. The car you're seeing spun out in front of me, hit the center divider, and then just careened right into me. Both of us are okay, but the officer who arrived said everybody's just got to slow down on the roads today. There is so much danger out there. And good advice for us all. I was driving the speed limit, though.
Oh,
Robin.
Well, we're just glad that you and the other driver are okay, and it is a warning to slow down as much as you can. Matt, really appreciate it, and Rob will have much more just ahead, George.
Everyone has got to stay safe out there. We're going to move to Washington now, where an angry President Trump launched a new tweet attacking the Russia investigation just before midnight and raised the possibility of pardoning former campaign manager Paul Manafort in a new interview. Our senior White House correspondent Cecilia Vega is here with the latest. Good morning, Cecilia.
Hi, George. Good morning to you. He's not just dangling the possibility of a pardon for his former campaign chairman. He is now calling Paul Manafort very brave.
With his former campaign chairman facing mounting pressure in the Russia investigation, President Trump now says he's not ruling out a pardon for Paul Manafort. The president telling the New York Post in an Oval Office interview, quote, "It was never discussed, but I wouldn't take it off the table. Why would I take it off the table?" This after prosecutors say Manafort, who cut a deal with the special counsel after he was found guilty last summer of financial fraud, including for hiding millions in foreign accounts to evade taxes, lied repeatedly. That plea deal now revoked. And without evidence, the president accused the special counsel of asking witnesses to lie. The president telling the Post, "If you told the truth, you go to jail. You know this flipping stuff is terrible. You flip and you lie and you get," the prosecutors will tell you 99% of the time they can get people to flip. It's rare that they can't. And just as the president was providing answers to the written questions Mueller posed, could he have been funneled information from Manafort's lawyers? Sources are now telling ABC News new details about the president's written responses, saying he told Mueller's team that he did not know about that now infamous Trump Tower meeting in which his son, Don Jr., son-in-law Jared Kushner, and Manafort met with a Russian lawyer claiming to have dirt on Hillary Clinton. And in another answer, the president wrote that he does not recall political associate Roger Stone telling him he was in contact with WikiLeaks, the organization that published hacked Democratic emails.
And the president is also now talking 2020, telling the Post that he's, quote, dreaming about running against some Democrats, but he really seems to have his eyes set on former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg. He said, quote, I'd love to run against Little Michael. So he's already got a nickname there.
Got the nickname already.
Yeah.
Also promising to retaliate against Democrats in the House.
Yeah, exactly. He says if the Democrats harass him with investigations, he will declassify documents that he says will be devastating to them. Quote, take a look at this. That would be the best thing that would happen to me. I'm a counterpuncher, and I will hit them so hard they'd never been hit like that. So he's talking about declassifying FISA warrant applications, other documents from Mueller's probe. But when he needs to, he says, quote, it's much more powerful if I do it then, because if we had done it already, it would have already been yesterday's news. This is, of course, as Democrats are launching up to investigate everything from his tax returns to his business dealings.
And he's riled up with even more tweets this morning. It really does feel like we're reaching an inflection point right here.
Certainly does. It's going to be a very busy next couple of weeks in Washington.
Cecilia Vega, thanks very much.
All right, now, George, to the outrage that is growing over the killing of that Washington Post writer. Top Trump officials now say there is no direct evidence the Saudi crown prince was behind it. But senators on both sides of the aisle are raising concerns. Mary Bruce is on Capitol Hill with more. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Michael. Well, there is real growing pushback here on the Hill. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are simply fed up, and now they're threatening to take action. Even one of the president's top allies, Republican Lindsey Graham, says he's willing to hold up any key votes, including a vote to fund the government, in order to get answers here. They are simply not going to let this issue go. And now they are threatening to move forward with a bill that could end U.S. support for the Saudi war in Yemen, a clear sign that they are willing to punish Saudi Arabia. Lawmakers here, again, both sides of the aisle want answers. They want to know whether the crown prince was involved, and they want to know about Saudi Arabia's broader role in the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. They're demanding to hear directly from the CIA director, who was notably absent from a briefing here on the Hill yesterday. They want to question her directly about the agency's assessment, the reported assessment that the crown prince did orchestrate this murder, despite the fact that the president, Robin and Michael, says that there was no clear link between the two.
Still much more ahead. All right, Mary, thank you. We're going to move on now to new accusations against Les Moonves that could put the fired CBS chief's $120 million exit package at risk. A new report by the New York Times centers on alleged efforts to silence an accuser whose talent manager claims Moonves told him if she talks, quote, I'm finished. Paula Ferris joins us with more on that story. Good morning, Paula.
Good morning to you, Robin. That accuser is talking. Whether it finishes him is to be determined, but this is a shocking new report with that hefty severance payout hanging in the balance. This morning, Les Moonves' reported $120 million golden parachute is in jeopardy of imploding. According to a new report in the New York Times, lawyers for CBS are looking into whether the ousted executive lied to the board about an alleged assault against actress Bobby Phillips. Phillips, who has appeared in films and television,
he was like a second father to her.
Met the Hollywood honcho through her talent manager, Marv Dower, in 1995. More than 20 years later, as Moonves was under fire for allegations of sexual assault and harassment by at least a dozen women, Dower says he reached out to Moonves by phone after a Times reporter contacted him about Moonves and sexual misconduct. According to the paper, Dower says Moonves told him he thought he'd be okay, but only one woman could actually bring him down, allegedly saying, if Bobby talks, I'm finished. One of Moonves' accusers told GMA in September why she never reported Moonves until this year.
I needed the job, and I was frightened.
Phillips tells the Times during a private meeting with Moonves, he exposed himself and tried to force her to perform a sex act. In a statement, Moonves tells the paper, "I strongly believe that the sexual encounter with Miss Phillips more than 20 years ago was consensual." The Times says that during their phone conversation, Moonves and Dower discussed the possibility of getting Phillips acting work to keep her happy. The paper says that initial conversation was followed by hundreds of text messages between Moonves and Dower, Phillips' talent manager. But according to the Times, Phillips told Dower she was willing to forgive and forget. Dower later texting Mr. Moonves, "I just was on the phone with Bobby, and I think you are going to be very, very happy." According to Dower, CBS later contacted him about a possible role for Phillips, which she rejected. She says it was when she saw her alleged attacker's response to a litany of accusations in Ronan Farrow's New Yorker expose in October of 2017, she had a revelation. Phillips telling the Times, "I realized I had been manipulated beyond words and that his outreach to me was phony, an attempt to silence me. This all caused me incredible pain, both physical and emotional, as I had to grapple with the fact that I had allowed the same monster to victimize me twice."
Now, we reached out to all of the parties involved in this story. None are commenting. As for that $120 million at stake, CBS put the money in a trust when Moonves stepped down, pending the outcome of their investigation into alleged misconduct. If CBS fires him with cause, he forfeits all of it. His honesty, his cooperation will all factor into that determination.
Certainly will. All right, Paula, thank you.
Okay, Rob, we're going to move on now to new trouble for Stormy Daniels' lawyer, Michael Avenatti. His client Daniels now says that the defamation lawsuit against the president was filed without her support. Our Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas in Washington with the details. Good morning, Pierre.
George, good morning. Their profiles rose together, but now evidence of tensions rising between Stormy Daniels and Michael Avenatti.
Overnight, Michael Avenatti coming under fire from one of his most high-profile clients. Stormy Daniels, the woman who claims she had an affair with President Donald Trump and helped launch Avenatti to fame, says she's not sure whether she'll stick with the outspoken attorney. In a statement, Daniels accuses Avenatti of suing President Trump for defaming the porn actress against her wishes and claiming that Avenatti started a new fundraising site to raise money for her legal defense without telling her. She says she has no idea where the money is going, saying, quote, "Days ago, I demanded again repeatedly that he tell me how the money was being spent and how much was left. Instead of answering me without my permission or even my knowledge, Michael launched another crowdfunding campaign to raise money on my behalf. I learned about it on Twitter." While Daniels says she's grateful to Avenatti for aggressively defending her, she also says, "In other ways, Michael has not treated me with the respect and deference an attorney should show to a client." This just the latest hit on the combative attorney, known for being media savvy and with a flair for the dramatic. Earlier this month, Avenatti was arrested on suspicion of domestic violence, something he flatly denies.
"I have never struck a woman. I never will strike a woman."
Authorities have apparently declined to pursue felony charges, but may be considering filing misdemeanor offenses. At the time, Stormy Daniels said she would reserve judgment, but would find another attorney if the allegations were true.
In a statement, Avenatti says, in part, "I am and have always been Stormy's biggest champion. The vast majority of the money raised has gone toward her security expenses and similar other expenses. The most recent campaign was simply a refresh of the prior campaign designed to defray some of Stormy's expenses." Michael?
All right, thank you, Pierre. And now to a major discovery. A man who may be the worst serial killer in U.S. history, Samuel Little, is already behind bars for murder, and now he says he killed around 90 people since the 1970s. The FBI is asking the public for help and information. ABC's Lindsay Davis has the story.
He might just be the most prolific serial killer in U.S. history. 78-year-old Samuel Little currently sits in a Texas jail cell where he now claims to have murdered more than 90 people in nearly half a century.
The details he gave were so close to what happened, law enforcement authorities were able to close these cases out.
The FBI says so far they've corroborated 36 of those murders. But this morning, they're asking local law enforcement agencies and the public for help, looking to connect Little to nearly 60 murders in 16 states across the country, occurring over a span of more than 40 years. Little eluded police for decades. It wasn't until he was arrested in 2012 on a narcotics charge that police began to connect the dots. His DNA linking him to 3 unsolved homicide victims from the 80s. Then this year, a Texas Ranger paid him a visit in prison, and Little started talking.
James Holland, get him to detail these horrible crimes that he committed.
Little allegedly detailing how he picked up vulnerable women, often involved in drugs or prostitution, and then strangled them, often in the back seat of his car. In many cases, their deaths were either not investigated or it occurred before DNA profiling was readily available. His confessions stirring up cold cases across the country, with many families still seeking closure.
It's a very difficult time, but I'm glad it's over.
In recent weeks, more than a dozen local investigators have gone to visit Little in Texas to get their own firsthand accounts. The FBI is asking anyone who believes that they may have information about a related crime to call their tip line. But here's a guy who says that he got away with murder 90 times. Chilling, frightening. All right, Lindsay, thank you. We are going to go now to a new Christmas light fight, pitting a family against their New Jersey town. The town says it can't afford the crowd control expenses. Gio Benitez is there in Old Bridge, New Jersey. And Gio, they're demanding the town is that the homeowners foot the bill. Good morning.
Oh, yeah, Robin, good morning. Quite the fight over here. You know, the family says they've already spent $100,000 on these lights over the years. Now the town wants them to spend thousands more per day. This morning, a holiday light fight. A town taking on one of its homeowners, saying the family needs to pay them $2,000 a day for security because their display is too popular. And if not, it's lights out.
I like doing lights and I like putting them up, and I just love everything about it.
Tom Abruzzi and his family have been putting on this show in Old Bridge, New Jersey for 15 years, featuring 500,000 brightly shining lights and a synchronized show.
We're doing something right for the community. We're doing something right for the people. And the people have been giving us nothing but good response, and they're for us. And I really appreciate that.
Their home was even featured in a 2014 episode of The Great Christmas Light Fight. People travel from several states to see it in person. But not everyone is happy about it. The town's mayor says that some residents are fed up.
They have a difficult time getting into the neighborhood. They feel that if they needed an emergency vehicle to their home, that the response of our first aid, fire, or police would be compromised, and I agree with that.
The town says they've had to add extra police detail on the block because of complaints about traffic congestion. Town officials saying the big crowds and parked cars have made this neighborhood unsafe.
They're saying it's unsafe. We're trying to make it safe.
We're not canceling the event. We are not telling his family to shut the lights off. We are there with a police presence in order to protect public safety.
And you know, the family does have support from at least 2 town council members who told us they're all for this light show. And you know, Robin, this homeowner says that donations from visitors here will go to a nonprofit called Homes for Our Troops.
So that's wonderful that he's going to do that. So he's planning to keep it going.
Yes, he is. He is planning to keep this going right now.
All right. Thanks so much, Gio.
Good for him. Let's go back to Rob Moore on that flooding out west.
Yeah, George, powerful storm now in California, just littered with all sorts of weather warnings and flood alerts. Heavy rain coming into Northern California and Southern California, including San Diego. So a number of burn fire areas that could see some mudslides and heavy snow in the mountains as well. Time for your chilly cities now, brought to you by Burlington.
When you donate a coat at Burlington, it's just like giving someone a coat.
Just a nice one.
You get 10% off your entire purchase, and someone gets a coat.
Thank you.
Join Burlington's commitment to giving back. You'll feel warm inside, and so will they.
She looks beautiful.
Time to donate. It's getting cold outside, so
donate a coat.
Stay warm.
They all did it, and so many people just like you. And together, we donated over 2 million coats. But we can't stop now. Go to any Burlington store to donate a coat and share the warmth this winter.
Another day with a fair amount of sunshine, but oh yeah, another cold day. It's going to feel like January once again. Temperatures into the lower 40s like yesterday, just not quite as much wind and a few clouds coming your way during the afternoon hours. Around 1 o'clock, 43, 30s by around 9 p.m. And then we're going to start tracking some rain tomorrow. The morning dry showers develop also during the latter part of your Saturday morning. Sunday, just a few showers, but not going to get a whole lot of rain this weekend. Look at Sunday, 67.
Coming up, that new trouble for the NFL. Why did Washington sign a player just days after he was arrested on domestic violence charges?
And a wedding nightmare. The popular resort now facing a $30 million lawsuit after a bride was assaulted by a butler the night before her wedding. It's coming up on GMA.
Once I started looking for car insurance, it was a no-brainer.